Good evening everybody and welcome back to a brand new video. Today we are going to be doing a fantasy inspired house that is going to be up in the clouds. I'm thinking it can be sort of floating on rocks, sort of like it's been ripped off of the ground and then now it's floating in the sky. I'm hoping this is going to look pretty cool. I think we're going to do it sort of Jack and the Beanstalk style. I might even do some sort of ivy or something climbing up the wall, which is how we get all the way up to the actual house. But let's crack on and see how we're able to do this today. So we're going to start off by making our floating land. I'm going to do it in this little lot here. I just really like the environment. Part of me is thinking we can literally do it where it's been like ripped out of the ground. So I could do loads of inlays inside of the ground. But I think we need to start by first laying down our idea of the floating lands. I think we need to do that bit first so that then we can start building into the base bit later on. And as you all know, the way that you do floating islands, if you've been watching my videos before, is that we're going to do this, lay down the first layer and then add another one on top. We can then remove this bottom layer and then we can control this one anywhere we'd like by lifting it up and down using this little arrow in the middle. This is then going to let us basically float this in the middle of the air. If you then add anything like stairs coming off of it or a ladder or something like that, it then works perfectly for that. And you can still access all of that land. So I don't want it to be too high. I think this is probably good for our first sort of layer. I am going to just sort of do it as a ground for now without the walls, just so we can get an idea of the spacing. I think maybe we could have it a little bit higher. This is going to be like our first bit, how we get to the rest of the house. I want it to be like more natural shapes. So I think I am going to go in and just sort of smooth it out a little bit, give it some natural edges, sort of like that. Then we can maybe do another little bit coming off over here like this. I think that should make it feel a little bit more natural. So that's our first little island. I'm gonna just sort of maybe actually, do I want that to spin? Yeah, we'll put that like this and I'll move it over to the corner. So if you want to move them, the only issue is that if you have to basically do it with the arrows, which then might end up actually messing up our shape a little bit, but we'll see. I think that's kind of fine. I think that's pretty good. I like the shape of our sort of floating islands now. I think I'm going to lower this one down a little bit, but we're going to give these all a wiggle now anyway, because we're going to have to link them up with ladders, which is like the hardest part for sure. So this is going to be our first island that we come across. It's going to be this one here. I do think maybe everything just needs to be lifted up a little bit more. I want it to be definitely floating and just looking really like sort of whimsical. It's kind of what I'm thinking. I think the hardest part is going to be, I want there to be like a sort of triangular shape coming down from these so that it looks more natural. But we'll get to that part in a minute. So obviously we're going to need to get to these. I'm going to have to really work hard to make this look as natural as possible, but obviously we do need to get to each of these islands. So I'm going to start with a ladder, which is going to bring us down to the base of our ground. So I'm thinking we maybe use this little trellis for now, and then we can go in and maybe change it afterwards. So this is one thing I'm thinking that we could maybe use to hide our ladder here. I would have to obviously check them all and make sure that it's still a usable thing, but we have a sim on the lot that I'm able to do that testing with, so that's fine. And basically once we've done all of the stairs, I'm just going to run the sim through and make sure it's all usable. But this is kind of what I'm thinking. We need some kind of giant, like skinny, either ivy or something like that. So I'm just having a look to see if there's any other funky ones that we could use. Obviously, I don't use any CC in my build, so we're not going to go in and find something that someone's already made online. I'm going to try and look mainly in our debug setting. Okay, so I didn't really find anything else that works better than this funky little plant here, so I think I'm going to use that one. Then I think I'm going to change our ladder to just be this one, just because it matches the colour a little bit better. We can then go ahead and work out connecting up our remaining buildings. Now, this is the bit that's going to be a little bit difficult. I am going to try and use stairs, I think, to be able to do this. I think I may add an additional little island over this side as well, just so that we don't have a ladder that kind of goes like it, so it links up with this one just a little bit better, I think. I think I'm going to raise this one up again just a little bit because our stairs are going to be like look a little bit strange otherwise. So the goal now is that if we keep doing this, we'll eventually link it up to our other one. So I'm going to pull, it's basically just pull and push it until we are able to connect up our stairs. So as you can see now, it needs to be further that way, or we can extend this one even just out a little bit like this, and we'll see if it connects. So we're getting it kind of close to being able to connect it. It still just needs a little bit more. So if I do one more, it may then connect. Yeah, there we go. So then it's now connected. I think I'm going to try and give this little walkway a little bit more shape as well, just so that it feels a little bit nicer. It's always better to have it feeling a little bit more unique in terms of flow. I think that looks a little bit better. We then need to have this one link up with our larger one over here. So as you can see, at the minute, it's going to link up with maybe like this side. If we try to do it now, it'll actually link up with here, which, to be fair, I don't actually mind that. I think that should look okay. Then obviously we need it to link up with our last one, which is here. So as you can see, it is pretty far off. We would actually need maybe just an additional bit here just to have it link up. I think I'd like it to go like that. So we definitely need it to have more space. I'm going to just raise the entire thing up as well, just so that it's taller. And that should help it also be able to attach on. As you can see now, it would actually link up, so that's fine. Now that we've got all of them linked up, we can then go in and start doing all of the different details. And this is the bit that's going to be quite difficult because I want it to look as natural as possible. So I'm going to bring back up debug, and we're going to go back to our rock section so that I can try and find rocks that will look the best in just basically hiding all of this walkway and all of the little stairs that we've built in. So I'm picturing it kind of like this from the Magic Realm pack, where it's just floating and you can see rocks hanging down. Unfortunately, this is the smallest one that I think we can get. Let's see if this one... Oh no, this one's a little bit smaller, but it still connects us with the ground, unfortunately. So it's not particularly going to work, but I'm going to see if I can make something similar with that same sort of style. So there's some that are kind of cool because they have a bottom and a top part. So I think I'd like to use some of those just to fill in these edges over here. I think I'll just do that in that sort of corner there. The other ones are probably a little bit too big to have that work, but then that does at least give us a nice rounded section over there. And then it also gives us a back section for when we do our house. I'm then going to use Alt 9 to raise up a lot of these to create our under section down here. And this is going to take a while, so I'm basically just going to fill in all of this bottom section and make it as rounded as possible, like that one that we saw before from the Magic Pack. So I've added a bunch of our rocks in and it's looking pretty good, but I ran a test and our sim couldn't actually get up this with that giant plant in the way, which is a little bit annoying. The rocks don't seem to make any difference for our sim being able to get through and up this, but that one plant we just couldn't get up with that plant there. So I'm going to have to try and work out some other thing that we can put there instead that isn't going to get in the way. I am thinking we can somewhat cover it up with rocks, but then our sim going up there isn't going to look as nice. Another plan I had was to do something like this, which then sort of, again, kind of covers it up, but leaves like all of these nice little leaves and everything around it, and it just looks a little bit more whimsical. So let's see if that gets in the way of our sim getting up there. Okay, no, our sim can still get up there, so that's good. That means I'm probably going to go with that one just because it does hide it a little bit better. Okay, I think this is actually looking really good so far. There is like a few extra bits I want to do, and that's basically just hiding all of these edges in with the rocks that we've already done underneath. Okay, so I've now added rocks to all of our edges. I'm then going to do some little floating rocks that are just around the rest of the map. I think that should make it look a little bit more realistic, like it's just come out of the earth. It's looking pretty good so far. Everything's very floaty. I think I definitely need more sort of greenery going on. I think I want to add some like grass and things and some flowers and just like a few random bushes and things. But let's add in our random floating blocks. So I'm just going to do maybe just a couple here. We'll do it like similar level to what we've got going on there. And this is just going to make it feel even more like it's just ripped out. There you go. I think that looks really cool now. Then I think we need to do our underground section. Now, I don't know if lowering the terrain is going to massively affect where we've placed everything. So I'm hoping that it doesn't, just because it is obviously a whole floor below. So I'm hoping that it should be fine. But let's see if we can just dig like a big hole under here. Okay, we can. Good. So I want a massive sort of just crevice underneath here where it clearly looks like it's just sprung from this ground. We'll try and make it sort of a similar shape. Then I want some slightly smaller ones just here. I do kind of like the idea that it's filled in a little bit with water as well, just to make it look a little bit more realistic, that obviously if it would rain, the rain would sort of pool in these little crevices. Then I'm going to add in a little bit of texture into all of these areas as well, just make it a little bit darker. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. We can then move on to adding some foliage and just decorating these bits. So I think for the stairs, I'm just going to try and get like a similar sort of brick, like stone pattern. I'm hoping that there's something that's similar. This is the first thing that kind of comes to mind. I don't think that looks too bad. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot else that is in that similar kind of style. So I'm thinking now we can add some grass to all of our grounds, just to make it look a little bit prettier. I think I might change it for like maybe this one and this one actually, just to make it look more like stone. But let's see how that looks first. I think this one kind of looks the most like stone. There's a few different shades, but I think this one's kind of the best. I think that looks pretty good. Then that makes it a little bit more unique between each of the different rocks. You can go ahead and just do some decorating of plants and stuff. It's sort of scattered around. I think this is just going to make it look like ever so slightly prettier. I think we could also have like a little bench or something on this section here, just as you're approaching the house. This is actually super cute as well. I think I'm going to add this little side table and we can just put like a light or something on it. And I actually really like this little chair here, just because it's got some moss on it and it just makes it feel a bit more like nature based. I think I'm tempted to also put my mailbox up here, but I'm not too sure. We could put it near the bottom where you climb up, or I could just wedge it somewhere over here, but I feel like sometimes it just sort of doesn't look that good. Thinking we can do our mailbox maybe like there. That looks alright. There we've got like a sort of little entrance way to getting into the beginnings of our house. And of course we want some lighting, so I'm thinking something like this looks quite cute, maybe in black. Yeah, I think that looks nice. Might put a couple of these over this side as well. And it just sort of lights up the path as you're walking up. I think I'm going to include a couple of these as well, just on this other side over here. Then we can start adding in some foliage, so I'm going to add a little bush there. We'll add maybe another one over this side. And then I just want some flowers and stuff sort of scattered around. We're going very fantasy with this one, so I wanted to include a lot of sort of pinks and purples kind of tones. I think I might add a little like path as well, just leading us through to this part. I wish that these were like slightly grayer, because then they would fit in with the colour scheme a little bit better, but it's fine. I don't think it matters too much. It still looks pretty good. I think that looks pretty good. We've got our little walkway on the first one. I don't know if I want to particularly do anything with this second one. I think it kind of looks alright as it is. I don't know if I want to include like maybe a few more plants just to bring it in a little bit better. If we could include something like this in there. Yeah, I think that looks a little bit better now. We've included some plants. So then we can move up here. I'm going to do this little one over here, then this side. I don't really want to include a massive amount on here, but this is basically like our lookout space. I did want to include just a little telescope up there though, just so that we can keep an eye on the skies. And I think this is like the perfect viewpoint. I think maybe we go with this nice wooden one. I think that looks really cool. Then we can have a look at finally at building our house. So for this, I kind of think we really don't have that much space is the only problem, but we could do it where it kind of digs into the rock just a little bit. This is definitely going to be a much smaller house, but I'm hoping that it still looks pretty good, even though it's really tiny. Might have to move some of our rocks just a little bit so that they're not in the way. There we go, they're a bit more out of the way now. I'm fine with them being like in this small tower section, I think, but because there's not really much else I can do about that. What I can do is maybe section it off so you can't actually see it when you're inside of the house. Alternatively, I can actually raise up the walls and then raise up the floor, and that actually hides it. So that also kind of works. That also makes our house just look a little bit nicer and grander. So I think downstairs that can be our toilet. This, I'm not too sure what I could do with that at the moment. Maybe it could be like a wedge-shaped kitchen or a little living space. Obviously we do need our bed somewhere, so I could just put our bed in the middle or over this side near the toilets, but we'll work it out in a moment. I think we will have it just be one level. I don't know if that'll be a bit too small, but we'll see. So let's go ahead and decorate the outside, including our outside garden. We of course do need some little steps, so I'm just gonna make this area here. I'll add a little pointy top to our turret. I think this is the nicest wall that we could pick. I think we need slightly curved walls, like on our roof, and that's just going to give it a little bit more character. Then I want this kind of sort of soft roofing that I think will just look a little bit nicer and a bit less new looking. And to bring in that fantasy element a little bit more, I'm going to pick this door, which is super cute, and it's got like the little reef on it and everything. I think the lighter tone fits with the colour scheme just a little bit better, because we are going with these sort of lighter woods. I really don't know how I feel about this little like section here. I kind of wish that we just had like it be flat to the ground. So I'm trying to wonder whether there's a way we could maybe just do stairs or something in here that would solve that problem. We could do it on different levels, and that should make it a little bit better. We did maybe this be a lower level. We can lower this back down to the ground. That looks a little bit better. We can then maybe just do this as like a little bit of fencing, and then you can climb up there in order to get to that top section. It's just sectioning it all off a little bit better, I think. And that looks a little bit nicer now, instead of having those stairs, which are also taking up our garden area, which isn't that great. Definitely think we need a bunch of ivy all across here, but I'm just going to do our windows first. I really like these windows. I know they're a little bit more modern, but I think they bring in a lot more light than the little square ones from the cottage pack. We can use them in here though, which obviously makes sense for having on the edges of these. I wish they were a little bit longer though. We could use these ones, but they're again not like super long. I think that actually looks really cute on that edge part there. Here maybe we could have these, because these look nice and like sort of skinny and long like you would have on this kind of turret. Then I do want a little bit of lighting, so I'm going to use this really cute bottled lighting. And then obviously I did want the ivy as well, which is I think going to bring all of this to life. I'm going to, I think, drag it all the way up here. I'm going to start by just placing these down. It's fine if it goes over the windows. I don't think it makes too much of a difference, to be fair. Then I'm just going to work out where I kind of want it to end. So I think it's going to end up here. So we're going to do it sort of spiraling around. And then up on this side, we can have it maybe just go slightly above the door and then curl around like this. I'm just going to make these as small as they go, and we're just going to wrap around this window. Then the last part is I'm just blending it all in with each other, and I think that looks pretty good. Last thing I kind of want to add is just some flowers, and for that I'm just going to pick this one, and that's just going to add some gorgeous flowers to this bottom section. And that looks so much better already. I'm then going to go ahead and decorate the outside of the house a bit more, or maybe put in some little planters or something as well. We could pick like these cute little ones to just put outside of our windows. I think we only have these two little windows, so I'll just place them like that. And add even more just by adding this little sort of hanging plant as well. Then I think we can go ahead and just add in plants all the way around our garden area. And I'm basically just going to do it similar to how I did the one on this side. So I've added the flowers. Now I think I'm going to do the same little path that I did on our first section, just to sort of make it match with the other area. And just because I think it gives you a cute little path to follow when you're walking up. I am going to double check after I've done all of this as well, and just make sure that my sim can definitely still make it through all the way to the top, just because I have moved a few things around. There is one more thing I'm thinking about adding, and that's just a little like sort of broken fence going all the way around this outside section here. But I'm going to double check it will actually fit there first. There's my little path just leading up to the front door. Then I was thinking like this kind of like broken fencing that might kind of work. And we can just sort of scatter it along here. Yeah, I think that does actually kind of work. So now I've done the outside of the house, we can move on to the inside. Now I think this is definitely going to be difficult just because it is such a small space. It is going to be a bit tricky to navigate and fit everything in. Part of me is contemplating actually pulling this out just so that we can then have a bit more space to be able to do things with. We could then put maybe a bed up here and it won't take up as much space then. Just gives us that slight bit of extra room. So I'm going to start off with our weird little intersection here, where I think we're going to do maybe just some fencing just to section it off to make it not feel as tight and small of a space. I think this one looks pretty nice. We can then just pick a similar wooden stairs to go off to the side. Something like that works quite well, I think. Fortunately, it does cut into the door though, which is really annoying. This one seems a little bit better in terms of not cutting into the door. It's still a little bit in the way though. Another option is we just slightly pull the door over, which doesn't affect it too much on the outside, but looks a little bit better on the inside. And then just going to add in some lighting just so that we can actually see what we're doing in here. Just put a little one there and there. Then think a simple brick wall on the inside would be best. We did say we were going with slightly lighter wood, so I think I'm just going to lighten up the woods that we've picked here. Then I think we can use a nice light wood here and here, but then I think I'm going to do brick on this bit, similar to like the cobble we've picked there. I think that looks pretty good. I just made some slight adjustments. I think I'm going to just shift everything over again, just because that door just needs to be like slightly further over. Then it doesn't get in the way at all of our little staircase here. Then we can start building into this bit. I'm gonna just add in like our little door here that leads us through to our bathroom. Then we can go with a quite simple one for this. I think this one's actually quite pretty. Let's use this one. Then I'm thinking we put our kitchen area across this back section here. Obviously we do not have a lot of space, so it is going to be quite tight. I do want to add a bunch of plants to the inside of this as well, just as we are going with quite bright, like sort of lighter colours of wood. It's going to look a little bit better and it'll start making everything look much brighter. I think this nice pretty tone of blue is kind of bringing it all in as well. Just adding a few more colours to the room. I can start adding some little bits of decoration. I think those plants definitely look good in this room. We could also add some hanging plants as well. Something like this looks pretty nice. Don't know whether it might actually look a little bit better maybe here. I definitely want there to be a lot of decorations in this room. We can add some stuff to the top of the fridge as well, just to add in that excess clutter. I think that looks pretty cute for our kitchen. It's got everything we need in it. So then we can move over to this next area where I want this to be a little dining area just for like one person. I think we could probably move this door over a little bit as well, just to give us a bit more space. This is primarily a house for one person, so we don't really need to have the 2 chairs in there, but if we can fit them in, then I'll put them there. I think this is definitely a really cute table for this room. We've got a few different types of the blue that we could include, including just light blue. I think this one looks the cutest though, just with the little paper prints on it. I feel like this chair looks the best for the sort of cottage vibe. We could include 2. I feel like, yeah, that looks alright. And it's a bit cramped. I don't want it to be too cramped around this door area is the thing. I think I'll include just this little stool. It's not going to be usable, but I think it works for just looking like we have an extra seat next to our table. Unfortunately, there's not really any curtains that match with this, so I think I'm going to have to leave curtains out of this one. The only one I can kind of think is like this one that's very short, which kind of works, but it's also just a little bit too dark to match with the colour scheme. So I think I'm going to leave curtains out of this one for now. Change the lighting to this pretty one here, just to give us that lovely warm lighting that I think makes the room look so much better. Then think we need a little bit more storage, so I'm going to go with this one in this slightly lighter brown. We could even actually do it in this little light blue colour, but I think it probably works a bit better in the brown, to be fair. Or even white, because of the warm lighting, it also just makes it look like it's wooden. I think that looks pretty good. I kind of want to include a little rug down here as well, just in the room. And then I think I might also include some little flowers on the table. I think that one kind of matches our colour scheme and patterns a bit better. But I do like this red one just because it does add in that little touch of red that brightens the room. So I think let's stick with that one. Then we need some flowers for the table. So of course I'm just going to pick some little ones. Maybe something like this works with our blue colour scheme. But if we picked, do they have something that's red? Red I think ties it in a little bit better. Or we can just go with these nice little yellow ones. But I think the pot looks a bit too dark for that one. Let's see if there's any other flowers. Could do just this small flower here. That I think looks pretty without overdoing it. Yeah, let's go with that one. Then we can move over to our bathroom, which is going to be a little bit difficult to do. I think we can do a shower down that end, and then we can do a toilet down this end. Obviously, we don't have a lot of space, so they're going to have to wash their hands in the sink in the kitchen. But if you're one person living on your own, it doesn't really matter. I think we have a little storage just directly above the toilet here in the form of this little cabinet. I'm going to put a light right at the top as well, and we'll have one on the top on the other side. Then I want to include some towels just on this windowsill part here. So raising it up from the outside And then we should be able to place them how we want them. We want them to be like that. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I think we could even include some candles as well, because they'll look quite pretty in there. Yeah, that looks nice. Perfect. Right, then we can do our shower, which I'm going to do on this side. Obviously, we don't want it to look too modern looking, so I might just pick something like this where it's a wooden shower. Then it kind of works with the same sort of idea that we've got going with the sort of more rustic style. I think that does kind of work. I wish it looked less rustic. The wood kind of just looks a bit old. There is this one as well. I don't know whether this one... It looks a little bit nicer, but let's maybe have a look. Let's see if there's anything else. I think what I might do is actually just make my own so we can at least have it look kind of similar to how it should look. So I'm just gonna bring over a wall. We'll do the wall in the same print. I'll add in a little archway. We'll do that in this lighter brown as well. I'll actually raise it up a little bit as well, just to give it a bit more height so it varies from the other areas. Then I'll just add some gravel in there just to make it look a little bit nicer. And there's our little shower. I think that looks pretty good. Last bit, I'm just going to add in a small toilet roll, and there's our bathroom. I think that looks quite nice. We can then move over to our bedroom area, which is over here. I'm going to do some seating maybe as well there. So I still want them to have a double bed, even though it's just one person, just because it makes it a little bit cozier for them. Do really like this bed. I think that does actually kind of fit in with the aesthetic as well, even though the colour scheme's a little bit different, because we've got that green in there now, but that does fit in with the plants that we've added around as well. What I'm going to do for this area as well is that we'll just do the same wall there, and I'll just remove that section there. Although it does add this weird little area where we've got the roof clipping in, but I think I'm just going to have to leave that. Then think we can add in like this funky chandelier, which is then going to light up this side of the room without us needing to add any more lights. Then I think we need a bit more storage, so I'm just going to add one of these above the bed, and we can add some decorations up there. Just add some books just on the corner, some little perfume bottles, and then maybe just some storage boxes on this side. That looks pretty good. I do think maybe we could include this as our curtain. It's a bit more rustic, but I think it kind of works in this little bedroom area, just because you really would have some kind of curtain right next to the bed. And maybe we could have some kind of thing hanging next to here. I feel like this one weirdly fits with the colour scheme, but maybe not the aesthetic of the room. This one's a little bit nicer. It's got the greens in it as well, which works well. On this side, I think we need a bunch more pictures. Do like these ones, although I'm going to have to change what kind of style they are. Something like that kind of works. Maybe we just add a few more directly above as well, just giving us a little slant towards the roof. I think that looks pretty good. Now we can move over to this area where I want a little set of drawers and even maybe just like a little seating area and a mirror. Just where we can sort of get changed and have a little sit and in comfort. So I think we can probably go with one of these things. These are always quite good for a kind of cottage vibe. Want a mirror. We could do this one opposite. And maybe that one. What other old ones have we got? We've got this one as well. Or there's like some slightly more extra looking ones like that. Or this one. I kind of like that one. I think it looks a little bit more cottage, sort of fairy-esque. So we can put that there. And then we need a dresser just over on this side. I feel like this one really works for what we're going with. It just looks pretty and has that nice shape to it that I think works well in the room. It doesn't come in the light brown, but if we do it in white, you can't really tell that much. We can then just add in some additional plants, which I think this room definitely needs. This one actually looks so cool right next to this chair here, and it looks so much more like they've just taken it from outside and brought it in. I think maybe we just include one little one there next to the wardrobe. I think we can actually move this over a little bit as well. And I think there does just need to be a rug right here in the middle. I think maybe we need a plant over here as well, or maybe like a little lighting, or both if we did something like that. Yeah, that actually works. Then I just need to move these slightly over so they don't get in the way. Yeah, that looks nice. Then I think we need quite a plain, just like circular rug here. These ones are quite nice, but they're a bit modern. We did like that one. Is that too modern? Yeah, a little bit. These ones would probably work. Just did one like that. I don't know if that one corner just looks a little bit too extra with that very patterned rug. It'd be better if it was plainer. Maybe just like plain blue works a little bit better. Yeah, I think that looks a little bit better. Okay, I think that's the inside kind of done. I am looking at just this top section over here and feeling like it really needs something there, but I'm not really sure what I want to put there. Let's see what else could go there. Could put something like this up there, just directly above the window. If I change the colour a little bit, maybe. Yeah, that looks a little bit nicer. Okay, so I think we're all done then. And there we have it, our floating fantasy house in The Sims 4. I think this came out looking much better than I thought it would. It is very difficult to try and get all of the islands floating, and it definitely took a lot of time to place down all of those rocks, but I think it was definitely worth it. I really like the inbuilt, like, sort of holes in the ground as well, where it looks like the house has come out, and I think the little fantasy cottage definitely looks super cute, and I would love to have a sim living there. But let me know what you think of this build in the comments below. Be sure to give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you haven't already. I post shorts as well as long videos. If you enjoyed this video, there's another recommended video on the screen now, so be sure to check that out too, and I hope you all have a great evening.